Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the OTT.X Wednesday webinar series, where it is our continued privilege to share with you the experience, insights, and wisdom from the people that are shaping the OTT CTV industry. Global distribution is becoming table stakes for success in OTT and CTV businesses, but navigating localization demands and compliance requirements for global distribution can often be prohibitive. Today, we're joined by 3Play Media's accessibility and localization expert, Erik Ducker, the Senior Director of Product Marketing, for discussion about leveraging the power of APIs and AI to simplify compliance, expand global reach effortlessly. Erik will be exploring how human-in-the-loop services combine best of AI and human expertise to optimize current workflows, how integrating APIs can transform complex publishing processes into straightforward automated steps, and how to turn regulatory requirements and localization efforts into competitive advantage that drive revenue for your streaming platform. Erik, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me, Erik. Let me share my screen and get started here.
All right, looks great. Thanks, Erik.
Awesome, great. So excited to be here. Thank you, OTT.X, for having us and having an opportunity to share kind of what we've been learning around publishing accessible and localized content in this in the OTT space. A little bit about me. Who am I? Why should you listen to me? I run currently product marketing here at 3Play Media. I'll get into who we are in just a second. My background's been in streaming for the last decade. I was at Brightco for the better part of 6+ years, running technology partnerships and managing product development in a variety of places, both in the corporate and media segments at Brightco. So really excited to kind of share some of my knowledge from my past, but also combine that with the intense focus I have on accessibility and localization services, and how we navigate that in the OTT space today. So that's a little bit about me. I think it's important for us to share a little bit about who 3Play Media is. You may or may not have ever heard of us. We're one of the niche services in the background that kind of help make sure content's accessible, make sure that content is understood by all. So we're really we've built the platform, and our mission is to make sure that every video is understood by all, and what that really means is if you have a disability, you are deaf, hard of hearing, low vision, blind, don't speak the language of the source video content, you can consume that content. And 3Play Media helps media publishers convert that core video property into all the assets that make it possible for others to consume. Our history actually started about 15 years ago. So we've been an established player in this space for many years. And it started as a school project of our founders who were out of MIT. And they wanted to develop a system that kind of disrupted the human-heavy workflows of creating closed caption files. And what they found is that they could combine automatic speech recognition technology, which is not nearly as good as it is now, and they combined this to shrink the time it is required to develop a 99%+ accurate caption file for student accommodations. And what 3Play Media has done is they've grown the business beyond closed captioning, but beyond the education segment to supporting media localization, supporting corporate accessibility and localization, and really taking that core principle of human in the loop and making sure that the quality is meeting the needs of the customer at scale. And so we've had the privilege of working with a number of clients in this kind of OTT and video distribution space, such as Masterclass, Crown Media, which is also known as the Hallmark Channel, and others in this space. And we're really excited to share some of the learnings that we've had from working with these brands throughout this time. So let's dive into what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about the changing landscape of content delivery and really the changing landscape of content production and the challenges that we're seeing in this industry right now. We get a firsthand look at this as we see what happens when content goes down. We're reliant on content being produced at the end of the day. Second, we're going to talk about human in the loop services. And hopefully most people have heard of this term. This is an established term in the AI and machine learning spaces. But we'll be talking about how combining AI and human expertise is an optimal way to leverage AI at scale. Third, and obviously the big punchline of this is this AI being deployed allows us to start really using automation via APIs for seamless content pipelines. So making sure that this stuff is all accessible and can be built into your workflows. So you have clicks or you have commands versus having to send an email, negotiate an order to get a dub or get a closed caption file. We can really make that simple for you, and we've done that numerous times with other customers. And then we'll wrap up and we'll have a chance for Q&A. So do feel free to ask questions throughout. Erik, our host, will be able to moderate a Q&A session towards the end. We'll have plenty of time. So without laboring anymore about introductions, let's talk about what's changing or what are the trends right now in the landscape. And this is really important to us. So we're sharing some of our market research back to you. Some of this stuff is all publicly available, but we've really tried to understand what this means in terms of what do these numbers mean. And so I think the first one that we really looked at is, what's the state of content production? What's the impact of the writer's strike? What's the impact of interest rates being higher in the market? And what we're seeing in real time, and this is data from Variety, we're seeing the decrease in new TV being created, which is a proxy for a lot of other content. But we're seeing this decrease of less greenlit shows year over year. 2023, obviously the writer's strike happened, so no surprise. We're also still seeing some of the after effects of that stoppage in work and the new negotiated terms combined with the increased interest rates. There's a lot of pressure on making sure that content has clear ROI metrics associated with it. From our market research, we expect that this will actually kind of continue to trend upwards to about a flat year over year in 2025. We don't expect a further decrease in production, which is good news and bad news. Good news is we might be at the low, the valley, but we don't necessarily foresee the valley leading to another growth curve anytime soon. And that's just from what we can understand. So what does that mean for your business in the OTT space? It means less fresh content. What does that mean? It means you need to figure out how to keep your subscribers excited about the content that you have, or you need to figure out how to grow your subscribers with the content that you already have in hand. The other trend, obviously, and this is what we're here and everyone is wanting to hear about, promise of AI, faster content delivery. We're going to get everything done automatically. We're going to pay $0 and we're going to have magical dubs, magical subs, magical closed captions that just work. But it won't. It won't. At the end of the day, the promise of AI is not quite what we're being sold today. It is a fantastic tool, though. It is a great assistant. It can accelerate a lot, but it is not an output that you can rely on and trust in this market. And we'll explain that in a little bit. The other thing to be mindful of is the competitive marketplace. According to a Forbes research study, survey study, they found about $46 per month was the average spend of an American family on streaming services. That's your competition. Your competition is how do you get your wallet share? How do you become a part of that wallet share? It's really small. And so you couple that with the other outcome of that survey where 90% of the people surveyed indicated that they would exit a subscription service if prices rise. You need to think about how do you create a better service, better value if you're going to go justify higher prices. So we have to be mindful that there's a lot of competition. You have Netflix, you have HBO, you have Hulu, you have these premium services consuming a lot of this average spend. So if you're not one of those key services, how are you going to compete in that wallet share? How are you going to make sure that you have an opportunity to differentiate yourself? I think AI the advancements of AI have made it easier for you it's made it easier for smaller OTT services to compete with the likes of Netflix and HBO, who have tremendous budgets to spend on localization and accessibility. And then the other thing that we just have to be mindful of is there's a lot of competition in terms of just time of day. We each individually have 24 hours a day. Maybe only 16 of those hours are awake. We have a job for 8 hours. So there's only a limited amount of time where we can get value out of the subscription services we have. And if we are on TikTok for an hour every day, that's an hour that's not being spent on consuming a couple episodes of TV on your streaming service or a movie on your streaming service. So we have to be mindful of how do we get people to keep coming back to our lean back, relaxed experience with high quality content that's delivered in a really engaging way. So there's plenty of ways in which we could potentially solve for this problem. And the one that I want to offer up as a potential solution to solve and combat some of these trends, whether they're negative or positive, is what can we do? How about we prioritize inclusive content? And what do we mean by that is you have to be empathetic towards your audience. They don't all consume content in the same way. I have the privilege of not currently having any disabilities. And so that might mean that I get to consume content however you give it to me, but that might not be the same experience for someone else. Someone who's deaf or hard of hearing may rely on the fact that those closed caption files are accurate. That means that the non-speech elements in that video have to be accurate. What if a meaningful action happens off screen and you don't have that properly captioned? That can tremendously change the outcome of that individual's experience watching the content. I know it sounds small statistically, but it can be really impactful for an individual. We also have changing demographics. Younger audiences are accustomed to captions. They're accustomed to subtitles. They're accustomed to this idea that I can read and watch at the same time. This is obviously the trend that we're seeing with TikTok and other applications that are making captions mainstream for sure. And then obviously the major growth opportunity is how can you get the content that you've produced or licensed and make it consumable in another language? Can you dub it? Can you sub it? Do you have the license rights to do that? Those are the things that you need to think about. Can you accomplish those things? And can you do it on a budget? So I think it's really important. Not only is there a growth opportunity, but there's a big population that needs these services. So there's a regulation component. OTT services or in general any TV that was originally broadcast in the U.S. on air, over air, is required to have closed captions, whether it hits an OTT service or not. And so those are a couple, tip of the iceberg regulations that are out there that make it possible for those who are deaf or hard of hearing to consume content wherever they want to prefer to consume that content. And if you're not offering the great closed captioning that Netflix and HBO are, then they're potentially going to choose that other service over your service. Okay, so great. We're going to go make an inclusive services, but there's some challenges. We're likely ingesting content from many places. We work with a number of big fast channel aggregators in the OTT space, and they're getting content from big studios. They're getting content from independent producers. They're making their own content. So there's a lot of different workflows that you have to work through. And so you have to make sure any additional steps along the way can lengthen the time to publishing. The other thing is you get inconsistency. When you're ingesting content from many places, there's different standards that every studio has. There might be different standards that the independent producer has. How do you make sure that you consolidate that? So we have customers that literally check every single caption file and make sure that it's good enough, or they send it to us to upgrade that file to their standards. So they basically have said, hey, we're going to build this into our model, our business model, to make sure that when we're licensing that content, we know that there's going to be a potential cost of making sure that it's ready for our experience, because we're expecting a consistent experience no matter what piece of content that a customer chooses to click on. Global distribution. Not only are there legal things to consider around your rights to stream that content, rights to make derivative works of that content, this is where you have to be mindful. You have to think about this up front. When you're getting and acquiring that content, how could you potentially position your service in a different region, in a new region? Do you have the content ready for that? Can you put the cost of that content and onto the content owner? Do you need to build that into your business model? Those are questions that you're going to have to ask. Ultimately, you can make the decision to build this pipeline and build this process. From a cost perspective, you'll have to make that decision around what your partners are willing to do to support the outcome here. And then finally, we talked about AI. You have to be mindful of accuracy challenges. You're not going to necessarily be able to just click a button and have AI solve all your problems. There are numerous challenges with AI, but AI is a tremendous tool and assistant to solving these issues at speed, at scale, at low cost. So think of AI as you can get 95% there, but that last 5 to 10% is make or break for a lot of people. And I like to share an example of just automatic speech recognition. Here's an example. So we run a state of ASR report every single year. And we basically benchmark all the top ASR engines and in the context of how good are they for accessibility. Don't get me wrong, there's other applications of ASR being good enough, like a call center, like basically taking notes for you. Those are great applications, but for accessibility, where you need to make sure that it's accurate, fully accurate, that's where it's not good enough yet. And so what I mean by that is that 95 or 90% advertised accuracy rate that some people are sharing, that's statistics. It doesn't tell you what's actually wrong. It just tells you there's something wrong. And this is a good example of ASR can be really impactful. This is a screenshot actually from Reddit, because some Reddit user posted this screenshot of a prominent OTT service delivering ASR captions. And as you can tell, that is not a caption that this person was actually speaking. And for what it's worth, the rest of the file could have been perfect. We don't know, but we know that this particular caption caught the attention of a viewer and negative press ensued around this one impactful error. So when we're thinking about accuracy, it's not just a statistical analysis, it's an analysis of what happens if the wrong word shows up in the wrong moment. So this can be applied to a lot of other applications of using AI, whether it's for translation or audio description. You have to consider how are you going to get humans to review it, whether you bring the humans or you work with a partner to support that kind of human in the loop process. So what should we do? Well, as I kind of have hinted at the whole day, human in the loop is potentially your answer, is most likely your answer. Human in the loop services refer to processes that combine automated technology, such as AI, with human oversight and intervention. This is a very common term in the machine learning space. This could be, if you guys are familiar with Mechanical Turk, think of it as humans doing a lot of tasks and then training AI to be better and better and better. This is what's happening. We're training AI to be better, but we're also making sure that we're providing an end output that is to the standard that the customers need. So human in loop services are playing a critical role in making sure that costs are as low as possible, but not losing out on quality. And what we mean by that, when we think about it, that the AI is doing 90% of the work, and then the human comes in and is just focused on a very specific task. So they're less likely to make errors themselves because they're focused on a smaller task, smaller scope of work, and they can get really good at that part. And that can happen over and over again. 3Play Media, last year, we processed over 2 million files in our system. That's thousands of files every single day. And that's the level of scale at which we're talking about in terms of having human oversight along with AI automating everything. And this really means scalable, improved accuracy, and cost-effective for you. So just a quick kind of what does 3Play Media do, make sure that you guys understand we're not just a captioning service. We really are making all media inclusive. So that means that you can come to us and support your caption workflows for source language captioning. You can come to us for the creation of audio description, and also localizing your content. So we can provide subtitling and dubbing services, AI dubbing services, voice artist dubbing services, as well. And all of that's packaged around the platform and can be accessible via our API. And we'll talk more in depth about our API in a second. But to give you an example of kind of where AI is being deployed to continue the trend of how do we make AI our friend and not necessarily our enemy in terms of progress. We're seeing a lot of great evolution of, say, AI voices. AI voice quality has gotten so much better over time. And now it's at the point where in the media world, we're starting to see the opportunity for us to continue to have humans involved in the script writing process, but then use AI at that recorded level. And so it's almost like having a voice artist on demand as you build that audio description track. And that's something that we really think is impactful and disruptive. And so I wanted to just share one example of kind of where we're headed in terms of the quality of this as an output. And just as a reminder, the script writing is done by a human. And then the playback recording, the voice recording is all synthetic.
In the daytime in a small town, light snow falls while pedestrians walk down a street lined with shops. Christmas wreaths hang from every lamppost. As Mackenzie turns a corner in her SUV, a shop called Susie's Home Decor catches her eye. Mackenzie smiles to herself while she drives onward. Later, she arrives at Harris Hanover Realty. She notices a parked pickup truck in the office's driveway, then climbs the front steps. Mackenzie enters the office's foyer. To the left, a man on the floor repairs a desk with a screwdriver.
Hello.
As he gazes up at her, his irritation melts away.
Hi. Are you the realtor?
Really, no.
So as you can tell, the voice narration part of the audio description track was quite smooth and natural sounding. And if you listen to human voiceovers in audio description tracks, they tend to sound pretty similar to what you just heard there. And I think that's really important to understand. Like the script writing, that is an important critical part of that experience. You could tell that there was things that were happening in the script, like his irritation melted away. AI is not currently at the capability of coming up with that description. So as you can see, it's a really important balance between leveraging humans' creativity with AI's ability to be really helpful and kind of speeding up efforts there. So as I said, this is really allowing us to do more with less resources, as you can tell, less content, less investment. We have to figure out how do we leverage AI to do more with less available to us. So this is all great. Tons of services like AI dubbing, subtitling, audio description. This is a complex industry. It's a complex opportunity, complex workflows involved in ordering these services. There's major players out there in the media industry that have voice artists, dubbing studios available to use. Those are great, and it can be a complex project. And really, what APIs can do is eliminate that that need for humans in the project management space. We can really accelerate, hey, I have an order and I need a service. And you can integrate that into our system so that when you order that service, you can rely on that service coming back. So really simply, 3Play is really just a platform, an ordering platform for all intents and purposes. So our API is designed to be super straightforward and simple. You have videos stored somewhere, Amazon, Brightcove, Kaltura, etc. The video is going to come to 3Play. You're going to tell us in that API call that we work with you on, okay, what services do you want? Closed captions, audio description. When do you want it back? We have service level agreements with all of our services so that you know it's going to come back on time. And then we're going to just deliver the output file. You need to just tell us what files we want. What files do you need? And that can be fully automated, and it's super flexible. We have SOC 2 Type 2 security, so you can trust that your media files are safe and secure when working with 3Play. And ultimately, this is really what can be automated. And the best way to illustrate this is actually just talk about a couple of customers who've been instrumental in using this service. The first one is Masterclass. Masterclass is providing training to anyone who wants to learn a new skill. They focus on making sure that they have the best possible trainer training. So I don't know for basketball fans out there, but Steph Curry has a Masterclass, for example. But they're really focused on making sure that their content's inclusive. So they needed to provide closed captionings, audio descriptions, sometimes subtitles to their subscribers to ensure accessibility across all their content. And they were recently, they up to last, this year, they were working with one of our out-of-the-box video hosting platform integrations. And then they actually transitioned to storing their video content in an Amazon S3 workflow. So we were able to easily connect, take Masterclass's existing workflows, mirror them in Amazon S3. And that basically allowed Masterclass to not really pause on really any services needs as they continue to produce more content, and deliver new content to their subscribers. So really, this is a good example of just like the flexibility. Once you've built one integration, it's pretty easy to go build or decide I need to go move and migrate to another integration. We can just move with you. And so they can continue to have that reliability without any of the extra manual workflows that might ensue if you had to switch off to a custom integration, for example. But Masterclass, great example, using multiple services to order via API and deliver those assets and never really have to log into a UI or do a manual order. The next one is a little bit different. It's a simple but yet complicated use case. And if you guys are familiar, we just had the Olympics and Paralympic Games in Paris, and NBC Sports decided to work with 3Play to focus on ensuring compliance for all of their clip content. So they have always produced a bunch of clips of like highlights, athlete profiles that are distributed to the Peacock channels and all of their other distribution points. And for them, they obviously need to make sure that those have closed captions. In the past, they relied solely on AI. And in their own words, they mentioned that they had inaccuracy as high as 50% inaccurate closed caption tracks through AI. And that's largely due to the nature of their content being a little bit more difficult with lots of proper nouns like names of athletes and also terminology that's specific to a sport. And so they worked with us to find a solution that could handle these massive volumes. And in the Olympics time, which is separate from Paralympics, they produced over 4,000 clips in that 2-week period. And we're delivering those clips 24/7 throughout those 2 weeks. What we did was we integrated their Amazon S3 workflows with the 3Play Media platform. And they had a simple order: send us a file, and we delivered back ASR captions. Oh no, it's ASR again. But we then had that same video file go into our human review workflow. And we used what we call progressive delivery, so that within 2 hours of us receiving that media file, we were able to overwrite the ASR caption. So they were able to publish their their video content right away to maximize revenue opportunity, and then make sure that within a 2-hour window, any viewers who were viewing that content, yes, they would probably receive ASR captions if they clicked on it a minute after it was published. But by 2 hours later, all of that content had 99% accurate captions. And this is really important for NBC. One, they want to show a very inclusive experience viewing experience for the Olympics and Paralympics. But they also understood that there was limitations to AI. And so by combining AI technology with this human review process at scale, allowed them to not interrupt revenue driving publishing of video content, but also be able to make sure that there's accuracy in the captions itself. So two kind of different use cases of, masterclass, more kind of on-demand content preparation for publishing a new course, NBC Sports clip almost in real time publishing of new content, and that speed, whether it's a 4-day window or a 2-hour window, that accuracy is still maintained. And I think that's really powerful, important understanding. Like, you don't have to sacrifice quality all the time for speed. You may have to consider how important that speed is to you in terms of cost, but ultimately, we're able to serve a variety of these use cases and support a variety of services, all kind of automated through this integration. So with that, I want to wrap up and just share a few key takeaways and make sure that everyone kind of understood or agreed with what was being said. Really, what we talked about is OTT platforms can turn accessibility and localization into a competitive advantage. Netflix and Max and others are investing heavily into these things. So if you have a limited wallet share that you're trying to compete with, you have to think about, how can AI help me compete there? Effective localization can increase revenue. It can increase subscriber growth and maintain a brand that is inclusive, and drive more subscriber growth, as I mentioned. And then finally, human in loop services can help you as a platform operator expand their audiences while maintaining compliance, reducing cost, and ultimately making sure that there's scale and you can rely on that service just like you want to rely on a pure AI solution. So at this point, I want to open it up back to Erik, Erik Hansen, our host, and we can talk about any questions.
Hey, other Erik. Thanks a lot. That was terrific. It's, I guess, maybe disappointing, or maybe in my case, good to know that magical. We can't replace webinar hosts quite yet with magical AI generated people, but
not yet.
Maybe coming. I'm sure it probably is.
Yeah.
They won't be nearly as sparkly and charming, I don't think, as me. At least
they would be a little bit more monotone, I think. I think that's the unfortunate current nature.
I'll have to keep working on my not monotoneness just to make sure that I still have a place to do webinar.
Exactly.
Something. Maybe I'll try my hand at being a sheep herder or something. Well, no, it's terrific. I really enjoyed the descriptive audio piece. That was super cool. I mean, and thinking how much content could be made available to those that don't have sight or have limited sight in enjoying content. Where before it was just, it'd be cost prohibitive to do that.
It's what we've seen is that by introducing synthetic voices into that process, it's at 50% cheaper at least to get those services now. As we at 3Play, and I'm sure others are exploring automated AD script writing services. We have a little bit more ways to go, and we're exploring kind of how do we do AI assisted script writing. That's only going to further kind of bring down the accessibility of delivering those services, no pun intended there. But I think that's really important because that's been a big theme of it's really expensive to do that for that population. And there's been some resistance in the non, broadcast based OTT, the OTT services that are not backed up by traditional studios like Netflix and Amazon and those.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there territories that have regulatory requirements to do descriptive audio?
So that is definitely changing. I have to refresh myself a little bit on the latest regulations that are kind of starting to come out of the EU. But they're starting to see, and we're seeing it from a customer ask perspective, more and more like, hey, well, if I'm going to do those dub in French, I'm going to have to do the French audio description track as well. And so we're starting to see a little bit more accessibility forward regulation in the EU. The US, on the broadcast side, we have some very specific regulations that we can follow up with in after the presentation. But there's like a number of percentage of content has to have audio description if it's been broadcast before. What we're seeing from a HBO, Netflix perspective is you don't see anything published without audio description to those services at this point. It's a requirement for any content that gets to those services.
Yeah. So, and if you're not doing it now, and you really need to start thinking about it, because it could be actually a requirement. And from a competitive standpoint, it's like we've talked about, it's going to be table stakes, just like captions and subtitles are.
Yeah, and I go back to that $46 a month. I mean, if you have $46 a month to spend, you're going to spend it on the services that meet your needs. And if needs are audio description or high quality captioning or dubbing or localization or subtitling, you're going to go to those services, even if you really would want to go to get get some content from these other services. But we all have multiple subscriptions at home, or access to them at least. I don't know if we're all paying for them, but
yeah, I keep finding ones actually. I found one just the other day that I'm paying for. I'm sure people are experienced with that. Yeah, I mean, I think in addition to, and we're seeing this with captions as well, viewers using captions even not because they need them, but because they're valuable, and they enjoy having multiple screens on at the same time maybe, and they can and plus the audio itself, maybe you like to keep the audio down in volume, and you can read the captions. Same thing with descriptive audio. I could see actually, or I could hear, as I might more accurately put, I could hear using that kind of technology to enjoy a television show or a movie while I was driving.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was a really interesting I think it was Planet Money, that did a podcast on audio description, and they love to kind of compare it to, you can turn a video into a podcast. And so, that audio descriptive track is an alternative way for people who are in the kitchen and they want to watch that video, or watch that TV episode in the background, but they can't have their eyes on it. So I go back to the concept of people like to consume content very differently than from you and I. And we have to be mindful of that. We have to be empathetic about someone might not have the opportunity to sit down in front of a TV and watch your content. It might be in the background of doing something else.
Yeah, it's just makes as you're saying, it makes your service, your content more competitive. And I think also for many of our members and those that are watching, their content is being made available through larger distribution platforms. And getting merchandising, getting priority is something that is really important. And if you can check a couple more boxes when it comes to viewing opportunities for your content, I think it can help you, to get the eyeballs on your content versus someone else's. So that's an important consideration as well for those that aren't even in the platform business.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again. And I was going to say also, 3Play has been great partners for OTT.X. Your live translations and captioning services have been a part of many of our live events. So thanks a lot for your continued support with all of that. All right. Well, with that, we're going to close out the session today. Thanks so much to Erik and 3Play Media for that deep dive into the many strategic benefits, efficiencies of localization opportunities that AI offers for making content available to global audiences and those with a variety of viewing preferences and demands. Thanks to all of you, our dear audience, for attending and for your continued support of OTT.X. As always, session was recorded and will be available on the OTT.X website at OTTX.org, along with an impressive collection of presentations from our online and in-person events over the last few years. I want to also mention that registration is open for OTT.X's flagship conference event, the OTT.X Summit, which will be taking place on September 25th through 26th in LA. We have a fantastic program this year scheduled, replete with thought-provoking keynotes from presenters, including Wall Street analyst Laura Martin and serial entrepreneur and founder of Reach TV, Linwood Bibbins, as well as host of research presentations, deep dives, industry meetings, and working sessions. You can register for the session at the OTT.X website at OTT.X.org and find out about everything that's going on at the OTT.X sphere, including how to join our community and support the industry by becoming a member. If you'd like to contact us, please do reach out to info@OTT.X.org. We love hearing from you. Thanks so much, everybody. And thanks again, Erik. That concludes our session today. Thank you for joining us and for being a part of the OTT.X community. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank you.